Seemingly harmless individuals conceal the most horrific atrocities you can ever fathom. Today's video showcases the emotional and psychological tolls of child predators that were sentenced to life. Get ready for a journey of justice, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment below. We will begin by looking at the case of Arthur Leon Vitasek, the most wanted child abuser in the United States.
We'll be back. We'll be back. You hear me? We'll be back.
This is Arthur Leon Vitasek, the most wanted man in the United States. His illegal career as a child molester began in 1990. He selected single mothers who were struggling financially and assisted them with their worldly possessions, and he also showered their sons with presents and attention. In return, Arthur would get close to these boys and sexually molest them. Arthur did this for over 15 years and involved at least 8 boys. Through the use of the internet, he was able to meet some of his victims, and for the remaining victims, he was able to deceive their mothers into allowing him to take their children to his residences. After being on the run for more than a year and a half, Arthur was finally caught and taken into custody in Dallas, Texas, in November of 2006. Arthur did not show any remorse for his actions and didn't express any regret during his court hearing. He even declared himself to be the most pleasant guy in the entire world. The jury passed the verdict that Arthur Leon Vitasek was responsible for sexual activity with a juvenile, child molestation, and public sexual immorality, which were among the 26 counts with which he was charged. It was even reported that he threatened the mothers of the people he had molested. One of the boys he molested had this to say:
"I had to live with it day to day. Can't ride in a Mustang to this day. I could barely drink tea to this day because it reminds me of the things that this man did to me."
After being found guilty of multiple counts of child molestation, a judge in Maricopa County Superior Court, Peter Reinstein, issued him a life sentence of 560 years. As gruesome as Arthur's act and unrepentant action might seem, it can't be compared to that of Christopher Elwell. We are at the Stratford Superior Court for the sentence of Christopher Elwell. He's charged with aggravated felonious sexual assault. The incident allegedly occurred at a Mineral Park house where Elwell lived with 2 other children, a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. The girls, according to the prosecution, recalled that Elwell had shown them recordings of sexual activities that were similar to the victim's own. The assertions were initially denied by Elwell, but he subsequently admitted to the offenses. Elwell, who had already been convicted of a felony related to sexual offenses in 2008, also pleaded guilty to failing to register as a sex offender.
The defendant was required to register as a sex offender and had been living at 12 Mineral Park Drive off and on, but more than 5 times a month, and had not changed his registration with the Somersworth Police Department.
Elwell showed no remorse for his action. After he was headbutted by another inmate, he was given a life sentence. Though Elwell's reaction appears unremorseful, his reaction in court can't be compared to the emotional breakdown exhibited by Ronnie Salazar. Ronnie Salazar, 24, faces a resentencing hearing in Miami, Florida, for the sexual assault and first-degree murder of his 11-year-old sister. The state of Florida recently banned life sentences for juvenile killers for the first time, overturning Salazar's initial sentence to life in prison. He is currently here with the expectation of a sentencing reduction. The judge recognized Salazar's troubled childhood, which included poverty and parental mistreatment. As a young child, his parents moved to the United States of America, leaving him to live a life of abject poverty. During his childhood, he was subjected to both physical and sexual abuse after being abandoned by his grandparents. Salazar's family brought him back to Miami when he was 10 years old. By then, his parents had welcomed 2 more children, and he revisited the feeling of rejection from them once again. One of the things that he had to say was this:
"They wouldn't tell me the reason why they left me. I broke down and I told them what happened. Everything. That I wasn't going to bring Stephanie back."
Ronnie Salazar was given a sentence of 40 years in prison with a chance of parole after 25 years by Judge Ellen Sue Venzer, the same judge who had first sentenced him to a life sentence. Salazar sobbed uncontrollably as he received the punishment, revealing his profound sense of remorse. Salazar's sincere remorsefulness is in contrast to that of Alfredo Lopez Cruz.
I am very sorry.
This was the plea from Alfredo Lopez during his arraignment. Crocodile tears pour from his face But this sick individual does not merit any compassion. Alfredo kidnapped a young girl on June 19, 2005, and subjected her to gradual sexual harassment in Hamilton, Ohio. Before deciding to go for a ride on her bike, the young lady was residing with her grandma and her father. She rode by a man who was drinking beer on a picnic table. In addition to the bird tattoo on his shoulder, he wore a mole on his mouth. The man motioned for her to come over with his body language, and when she did, he hoisted her inside his home. Once inside, Alfredo committed the most heinous sexual assault imaginable. The young lady escaped naked and made her way back to her house as soon as he finished the assault and went to sleep. When she arrived, her father inquired about what had transpired. She told him how Lopez had sexually molested her, and in response, he grabbed his revolver and headed straight to Lopez's house as her grandmother called the police. But Lopez had already escaped from his home and was on his way to Mexico before the girl's father arrived. Authorities apprehended him and sent him to the United States, where he received 3 life sentences. Alfredo showed some remorse, though not genuine. This can't be said of John Acklin. This is the arraignment of John Acklin, a 56-year-old man who was charged with 16 counts of sexually assaulting 2 minors. The crimes were committed in Livingston between December 2004 and March 2006. The identities of the victims and the specifics of John's assault remains unknown. On August 9, 2019, a jury in Columbia County found him guilty of 1 count of sexual conduct against a child, 10 counts of criminal acts, 1 count of aggravated sexual abuse in the first degree, and 4 counts of aggravated sexual abuse in the second degree. Acklin was initially captured in Texas on October 25, 2018, and subsequently extradited to New York on November 8, 2018, as previously reported. The most notable aspect of his sentencing was the fact that the victims were able to confront him directly. They expressed happiness at being able to seek justice and hoped for a life sentence for him to prevent harm to other children.
I'm finally happy that today I'm able to seek justice for what I've been through. And I hope that he's sentenced to the rest of his life in prison, because he should never be let out to harm any other children. My character is not defined by what you've done to me and everything I've been through. And I hope that you never see the light of day again. I hope that you're never going to be around any children. I hope that you just spend the rest of your life there and you're never let out, because you're a danger to children in this society.
John could only look down and stare into thin air, demonstrating that he does not feel any remorse for his actions. He received a 335-year jail sentence. John Acklin's reaction in court is in contrast to Francisco de Aragon's case. At the Broward County Courthouse, a former swim instructor from South Florida, identified as 28-year-old Francisco de Aragon, was found guilty of sexually assaulting 3 little girls, all of whom were 6 years old. He was accused of indecent and lascivious molestation, in addition to sexual battery of a minor. Each of the 3 victims testified in court, and one of them accused him, saying, "The lifeguard touched my private part." Francisco de Aragon vehemently refuted the allegations and stated that he was completely unaware of the reason he was present in court. A misunderstanding may have arisen because of accidental contact that happened when they were learning how to float, according to the discredited instructor. This was what he had to say.
The facts in this case show innocence, not guilty. Not that I'm some monster. Not that I'm some sort of molester, some secret pedophile.
De Aragon was found guilty of all the charges brought against him on May 18, 2017. The charges included 1 count of sexual battery on a child, as well as 3 counts of lewd and lascivious molestation. Upon the first charge, the defendant is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The defendant showed some remorse for his actions and rejected a plea bargain that would have led to a 25-year jail sentence. However, he received 4 life sentences instead. If you think Francisco feels remorseful for his action, you'll be shocked at the next convict's reaction to his sentence.
Tingley, basically you're a monster who has destroyed the innocence of numerous children. Unfortunately, they have to live with what was done to them the rest of their lives. The lucky ones will realize that they did nothing wrong, that they were just the victims of a sick pedophile.
This is Judge Wilson's words to James Tingley, a 70-year-old individual who's currently on trial for a major offense. Authorities also arrested Randy Stevens, the father of the children, on similar charges. There were 5 charges of abuse against Stevens, including 5 counts of abusing one of his children and 3 counts of aiding and abetting Tingley. James Tingley reached unprecedented levels of abuse with his partner in crime. In exchange for money, he gave Tingley access to his kids. Jennifer Walker, who is now serving as an assistant prosecutor, did not mince words when she addressed him.
To him, children are nothing more than animals. Animals to sell, to trade their bodies. They're not the animals. He is the animal. He is the man that deserves to be locked up in a cage for the rest of his life.
Another statement said that detectives believed his misdeeds date back 50 years. He has called himself Jim, he has called himself Uncle Jim, but I would call him a monster and a pedophile, according to Walker. These children's souls, or parts of their souls, have been stolen by the defendant. The prosecutor said they have been utilized by him to fulfill all of his sexual requirements. With some of them, he has been abusive, and with others, he has treated them as if they were his girlfriends, and he has even wanted them to be his wife. It is utterly revolting. Eric White stated in court that Tingley continues to maintain his innocence. Tingley's age and deteriorating health, according to White, make it highly improbable that he will live to his first eligible parole date, which is when he will be 96 years old. When given the option to speak, he said he did not exhibit any regrets over his criminal conduct. The time has come for Judge Thomas Wilson to express his thoughts to James M. Tingley.
Tingley, basically you're a monster who has destroyed the innocence of numerous children. Unfortunately, they have to live with what was done to them the rest of their lives. The lucky ones will realize that they did nothing wrong, that they were just the victims of a sick pedophile. But it's going to have long-term impacts on all these little girls that were molested. And I know a lot of people, I'm sure, think the only money we should waste on you, Mr. Tingley, is the cost of a bullet. But I think it's worth every penny to lock you up for the rest of your life.
Judge Wilson handed down his verdict. Randy Stevens, an accomplice to James Tingley, received a prison sentence ranging from 39 to 60 years.
Therefore, on count 1, 25 to 50 years. Counts 2 through 4, 25 to 50 years. Counts 5 through 6, 20 years to 40 years.
James Tingley's cold reaction stands in contrast to that of our next sex offender, Michael Peach. Michael James Peach would undoubtedly hold the title of most prolific sex offender, if such a thing existed. Michael Peach's sympathetic expression is misleading. He is a monster. Michael Peach is a serial sex offender in Leicester, and he has committed 3 sexual offenses in the past. Michael Peach's initial conviction in 1996 for sexually abusing a youngster marked the beginning of his preoccupation with the subject. In 1997, Peach was found guilty for the second time on new accusations that were related to the same youngster. Peach's apparent remorse for his actions led to a reduction in his sentence, resulting in his early release from jail 2 years later. Next, we have his most recent victim, whom he encountered while employed by the same medical business that employed the victim's father. Peach took advantage of his position to become familiar with the victim, even though the boy's mother was unaware of his sex offense. Peach continued to establish a relationship with the boy as he got closer. He engaged in sexual actions with him while making the recording. This went on for a long time, until the little boy became fed up and told his mom about Mr. Peach. The mother informed the proper authorities about the incident. In an attempt to murder them, Peach broke into their home and brandished a stun pistol. While Peach was trying to approach the boy, the mother secretly hides the child upstairs. However, he shot her several times while she was trying to prevent him from getting to the boy. A teenager in the woman's family was quick enough to call his father and ask him to come and save him. Thankfully, the father lived just a few blocks away, so he was fast to come down and stop Peach from killing his entire family. Peach tried to take his own life when he fled the house. The police followed him across the neighborhood until he deliberately crashed his car into a wooded area. When he realized he was still alive, he retrieved a hunting knife and stabbed himself multiple times in the chest and throat. Once he had recovered, he was arraigned in a Trumbull County courthouse. After being convicted of 18 offenses, including gross sexual imposition, kidnapping, and felonious assault. During his trial, the judge who presided over the case was shocked by how wicked this man was. Before reading his final verdict, he had this to say about the defendant.
You knew you were caught being a sexual predator for the third time, so you premeditated a diabolical attack on a young mother and her children in order to cover up your heinous, awful misdeeds. You gathered up a rope, duct tape, a knife, a stun gun, a ski mask, and put together your own special murder backpack. You then slithered over during the early morning hours to the victim's home to carry out your evil plans. Mr. Peach, you made a statement to the police that you were a monster. This court wholly agrees with you that you are a monster.
Several people believe that Peach should have faced execution instead of receiving a 48-year-to-life sentence in jail. If you think you have seen enough, then wait till you hear about the weird case of Edwin Wren.
I was sitting on the couch about to watch a movie, and I heard a voice in my head telling me to do something to her.
These were the words of Edwin Wren when he was arraigned in court on October 27, 2011. Authorities convicted Edwin of sexually abusing a child. At the time of the tragic event, Wren was living in a house near Smyrna Beach with the baby's mother and her boyfriend. However, on that fatal day, the boyfriend was absent and the mother had gone out to fetch groceries. Wren stated that he had thoughts in his head and had just started to black out. When he opened his eyes, he saw blood everywhere and he was terrified. Following that, he headed straight for a neighbor's house to fill her in on what had happened. The child was violently bleeding and the neighbor noticed it, so she seized the child and then called the police on Wren. As a result of the actions he had taken, Wren fled the house, made his way through the forest, and eventually hid himself in the restroom of a Walmart 7 hours later. The cops discovered him there, partially covered in blood and without a shirt on. He was immediately taken into custody. While on trial in the Volusia County Court in DeLand, Florida, Wren made an effort to use the insanity defense. According to his testimony in court, he spent 5 separate stints in the hospital between the ages of 6 and 12 due to his severe mental illness. Additionally, he often cuts himself to try to deal with his sadness. After consulting with a medical professional, it was determined that Wren was neither mad nor suffering from depression. When Wren was convicted, he displayed no sign of remorse. The judge ultimately decided to condemn him to life in prison. The baby girl had suffered so many shattered bones and ligaments on the inside of her body that she was rushed to have reconstructive surgery.